Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fernelli. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and all across the 24/7 Sports Facebook network. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash the like, come and join us in the chat. And you see those sirens in your feed, you know exactly what that means. We've got breaking news here on a Monday night. Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald out amidst a hazing scandal. Tom, we discussed this morning on Monday's 11 a.m. Eastern Time live edition of the Cover 3 podcast. None of us thought that this would be happening anytime soon. We surprised, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's the first reaction. You get hit with it. You say like, are you surprised by the news? Yes, I was. I did not think that this would be the outcome, period. And I did not think that we would be getting a swift outcome right now.
I'm not surprised this was the outcome. I'm very surprised at the timing of it. I think that, after we got off the air and recorded the episode, the news story in the Daily Northwestern came out about racism allegations in the program from like the late 2000s. And just like anytime there are allegations made against a football coach that involve racism, sexual assault, hazing, the chances of the coach being fired are always high. But based on what I had been told, which I went over on the show this morning, I'm surprised by the timing of it. And my gut tells me that there's more to it than maybe was possibly known beforehand for this to be the decision, because it was yesterday where the school president said he's going to reconsider the 2-week suspension. And then 24 hours later, Pat Fitzgerald is fired. To me, to go from 2-week suspension in July to firing the coach, there's got to be something else.
And correct me if I'm wrong, they wanted the investigation to be an independent investigation so that they could say that there was no tampering with it. So, they get someone else to come in, conduct the investigation into the hazing allegations, and they come back with their own findings. So what if, in light of more allegations, if you're the university, now aren't you a little interested in doing your own investigation? And that's what had me thinking that with everything starting to pile up, that's where Northwestern decided that it was going to lead the charge and starting to ask some questions. And the second that things started to mount up, that's the only way you go from 0 to 60 here. I'm with you right there. My mind goes to a place where Northwestern was like, okay, now we get to start asking around, and what they came back with quickly piled up enough that they didn't feel comfortable moving forward. They don't want to fight all of these individual sets of allegations. They'd probably rather just clear it and move on.
Yeah, but it's a tricky situation too, because again, just trying, which is really hard, putting the allegations aside for now and just looking at the decision-making process and Fitzgerald being fired.
Well, that's the most interesting thing. I mean, let's be honest. There's nothing that's interesting about the gory details of the allegations that have been made about how uncomfortable activities made at least one person feel, or that is not a fun thing to sit and litigate. I don't enjoy that part of the story. So yes, we can put that to the side and look at the decision, because that is a much more appropriate conversation, I think, for us to have.
But because Pat Fitzgerald is so important to the program, like that's like the significant part of him being fired. But you look at Northwestern in recent years, like, because, I mentioned this on HQ just now before we came on here, but Fitzgerald was a player. He was then, the coach of the program. So it's very much like a kind of fairy tale story where the former player leads the team to the Rose Bowl in '94, and then he becomes the coach and leads them to a level of success that they just had never had in the history of the program. They get a giant athletic department or facility built on Lake Michigan along the shores that never was possible without Pat Fitzgerald becoming the coach. But you look at the school in recent years, there's been a lot of changes.
Oh, new university president who just showed up.
Jim Phillips was the athletic director. Jim Phillips was the guy that brought Pat Fitzgerald, and helped run that athletic department. He leaves to become the commissioner of the ACC. So you've got a new athletic director come in. Your president steps down. You hire a new president. That president steps down almost immediately afterwards because of health issues. So then you hire the person who was your second choice to be the president. So you've got a new president, you've got a new AD, and you've got a college football coach who practically is the most famous person on that campus. I mean, not practically, he is the most famous on that campus. So in a situation like this, I do wonder if Jim Phillips is still the AD and it's still the old president, is Pat Fitzgerald fired right now?
Ooh.
Maybe. But I don't think I think there's more time that's passing between this, but I think that, again, and this is not a judgment on whether it's the right or wrong decision. I want to make that clear. I'm just trying to figure out if that plays a part in what's happened here, or if Fitzgerald might have had more time, or he might have had more friends in the room against allegations like this, had that not been the case. So these are all things that I think you kind of have to take into consideration here. But it's an odd situation because he has been the coach there for a very long time. He's been very important for that program, and trying to figure out, like, forgetting the timing of this, which, again, what, Big Ten Media Days is in 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's he's supposed to speak 2 weeks from Wednesday.
So,
well, you couldn't send him there. So I nearly texted you this. In my mind, as things were starting to pile up and acknowledging the seriousness of it all, I thought that there was a wiggle room or a pivot point where the university would say, this is really unacceptable. There are going to be 2 games missed. He returns for week 3, and that's a road game. So that means the circus won't be in your backyard. And then he's back on the sidelines coaching the rest of the way. And they talk about, we need to learn from this and grow moving forward. And like with everything that, we're kind of sold on about, football culture, and especially Pat Fitzgerald, I thought that was like, that makes sense. I could absolutely see that being the outcome here. That is not the outcome here. Now Northwestern goes to Big Ten Media Days without its head coach, who's been there for 18 years. We're recording this in real time. Tom and I the news broke. We got on HQ. Now we're over here on the Cover 3 podcast. Thank you to all of you that are jumping in live at youtube.com/cover3. We don't have an official word from Northwestern as of right now, correct?
I think there was something from the school president, but I have not seen, or I didn't.
Okay.
I saw a tweet about it, but I haven't been able to.
And as we continue the conversation, chat, feel free to fill us in on the stuff as it is becoming official, because eventually here in a few minutes, we do want to get to the Northwestern team that's going to have to take the field 12 times this fall, and the sort of challenge and the expectation for that group as well, once we start to know who the interim coach is and all those things. Sorry. So what other pieces of this are you unpacking right now?
Well, just trying to spin it forward here. They need an interim coach, but if you're firing Pat Fitzgerald for the things that happened on his watch, can you just promote an assistant or a coordinator who was on the same watch to take over as the interim? Like, it's an odd situation, and one that I think is going to be very, very difficult for them to figure out, and on a weird time frame, in that we are in the middle of July and the season is starting in a month and a half, and they've got to have a coach in place. So I feel like it's going to end up being an assistant or a coordinator, or maybe, I don't know, just I'm trying to think of, like, I don't know, somebody they can bring back just as a figurehead kind of coach. It's going to be a very, very difficult situation to navigate for Northwestern, both on and off the field this year.
In the days ahead, athletic director Derek Gregg will announce the leadership for this upcoming season. So we're not going to know that right now. And the president, President Michael Schill, released a letter confirming the news and also giving much more specifics on the investigation and what it came back with. During the investigation, 11 current or former football student players acknowledged that hazing has been ongoing within the football program. In new media reporting today, still more former Northwestern student athletes confirmed that hazing was systemic, dating back many years. This has never been about one former student athlete and his motives. This is much bigger than that. Again, this is the letter from Northwestern University President Michael Schill. The hazing included forced participation, nudity, and sexualized acts of degrading nature in clear violation of Northwestern's policies and values. I'm very grateful that, to my knowledge, no student suffered physical injury as a result. Let's see. The hazing was well known by many in the program, though the investigator failed to find any credible evidence that Coach Fitzgerald himself knew about it.
Well,
but we're holding him responsible.
I mean, at the end of the day, when you're the coach, you are the one who's going to be held responsible. But it's just, again, the fact that there's no evidence that Pat Fitzgerald was aware of it and they fired him. Again, it's a surprising thing. And again, I'm not trying to say right or wrong. Because again, as I mentioned earlier on the show today, the players I talked to confirmed that the hazing happened. The only thing that they were very much pushing back against was the sexual assault nature of it. They thought that that was kind of an egregious way of describing what was happening in the hazing incidents. But I said this on HQ too, and I even talked about this with a couple of the players I talked to. I says, locker room culture, when you grow up in a locker room, like playing football or playing sports as a kid, and then you end up I never played in the D1 level, but when you grow up in a lot of locker rooms, the kind of antics and the relationships and the hazing, if that's what you're going to call it, that takes place inside those locker rooms seems completely normal to you. But to people on the outside who aren't part of that locker room culture, it looks absolutely insane. And
yeah. No, I mean, I am not laughing, but there's a lot about college football that to someone on the outside looks absolutely insane. So yeah, I'm adding it to the chapter.
Yeah, like the frog in the pot of boiling water. The frog doesn't realize it's boiling until it's too late. And I think that this is kind of a situation that Northwestern may be dealing with right now.
Tough. I mean, disappointing on so very many levels, and a disappointing end to Pat Fitzgerald's time with Northwestern, and going to be very difficult. Okay, so we do not know the interim coach. We will not know potentially for the next couple of days. What can we expect from this Northwestern team? What do you think are going to be some of the challenges that they're going to face in trying to move forward with the season? And I say that, like, not trying to over dramatize it. He's still with us, Pat Fitzgerald. Thank goodness. But this is going to be a unique season for Northwestern when they were already fighting a lot of uphill battles anyway, the way that it looked going into the year.
Yeah, this was a team that we haven't done our Big Ten win totals yet, obviously, but it is a team that none of us have been shy about expressing our opinions for the expectations for Northwestern in 2023, based on what we saw from last year's team and based on what we've seen from the last two seasons of Northwestern football since the COVID season when they won the West and got to the Big Ten championship. Now you take the coach away 6 weeks before the season starts. You've got a lot of players, like, will they be transferring in? Will players who did transfer in this offseason suddenly transfer out? Other players who just committed into the recruiting class who are now going to be, just having second thoughts about whether or not they want to be part of the program. I have no idea. My expectations for the 2023 season for Northwestern are not high, and they were not high to begin with, but I think it's going to be a very long year. And I don't know, maybe they rally around it and galvanize and play strong. I doubt it.
I wouldn't bet on it. I would be a great I get like a great way for this to spin forward for the players on this team. Danny Cannell jumping in as well. DK, I appreciate you going straight from the carousel, jumping in with us off HQ on to Cover 3.
My wife made burgers that look really good. I want to watch the home run derby, and then it's like, holy cow, what just happened? Oh man. Skewered on Twitter. I hate this story. I'll just tell you, I will be honest. I am biased because I like Pat Fitzgerald. I think he's a good coach. I think he has good character. I think he's run the program the right way for 17 years. And I say that, and people are just skewering me on Twitter because, well, if it was the right way, he wouldn't have known this. Something still feels off. I think there's going to be a massive lawsuit from Pat Fitzgerald that he's going to try to salvage his reputation and some money as well. For 17 years, somebody's coached, haven't heard a peep. There hasn't been any incidences whatsoever. And for a couple players, one who is reported had a vendetta to take down Pat Fitzgerald, and we're going to listen to him as opposed to the hundreds, if not thousands of players who have signed petitions and backed him, including the entire team. I'm in a little shock right now. And I think it's terrifying how swiftly and how quickly this took place.
I think we talked about it a little bit before you joined on us. The statement from the school president said that more players had come forward to confirm the hazing and all that kind of stuff that took place. But he also said in that same statement that there was no proof that Pat Fitzgerald had any awareness of any of it. So
do you know what I think happened? Because you know what I think happened? I think all the stuff, the hazing probably did happen, right? It's been reported.
Oh, I have no
doubt. But I think most of the players, if not all, thought it was goofing around, dudes being dudes, or this is hazing. I don't think any of them thought it was sexual assault. I don't think any of them thought it went to a place that was, worthy of reporting to Pat Fitzgerald or had any problem with it whatsoever. And then you had one that did, and he took it forward. Like, I think these things probably took place. I was thinking of like some, people are the dry humping thing or whatever's taking place. I never experienced that at all. But I've seen stuff like the naked bear crawl. It's humiliating. It's dumb. It's stupid, but it takes place in a lot of locker rooms. And I think there are going to be coaches who are terrified of this happening to them. And you're just going to see a zero tolerance policy for hazing, which we've seen that already happen in fraternities. I mean, I think we talked about that earlier today. Probably just going to be implemented here and say, you know what? I don't care what anybody thinks. Is it fun? Is it camaraderie? Whatever it is.
It's not worth my job.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say the same thing if I was a coach.
No, this is it is interesting to think about the impact that this decision is going to have, as we've discussed, not only within Northwestern, but throughout college football as a whole. Again, the university president saying that 11 different current or former football student athletes recognized and acknowledged that the hazing has been going on within the program. Michael Schill explaining the decision. We won't know the interim coach for a little bit. The team faces a very, very difficult season ahead. How do you sell Northwestern football now? So now
They're going to see an exodus of players. They're going to be awful this year. The under is a half, and I'll take under.
So you are the athletic director who, as you just mentioned, like we've had new university president in 2022. You got a new athletic director in 2021. A lot of new blood, an interesting dynamic, Tom, as you were mentioning earlier. So put yourself in their shoes. How do you sell Northwestern football right now?
It's a Big Ten job.
It is a take,
and you're going to get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, my initial feeling is, as we kind of discussed earlier, like when it comes to naming the interim, you're not like, if you're firing Fitzgerald for these allegations, you can't really hire somebody who has connections to the program where all this stuff took place that you just fired the coach for. So whatever the long-term hire is, I think that it's going to have to be somebody from outside the program without any actual ties to it. Now, could it be somebody with Big Ten experience? Yes. But will it be somebody with ties to Northwestern? I doubt it. I think that it's still an attractive job simply because, again, it's a Big Ten gig. It's going to be coming with a Big Ten paycheck. You have those beautiful facilities that I mentioned earlier that they built along Lake Michigan. There's a proven blueprint that you can win at Northwestern at a certain level in the Big Ten. Now, I'm somewhat skeptical that you can continue to win at that level in this transfer portal age, considering some of the limitations that Northwestern has on who they can accept as a transfer. But I think this will be an attractive job to somebody who is a developer, somebody who wants to build a program like a Pat Fitzgerald type. So I don't think they're going to have trouble finding a head coach. It's just they're going to have a more limited pool of candidates because I think they just got to stay away from Northwestern ties right now.
They should go get
David Shaw.
No, that would be a good one. Lance Leipold. I mean, he seems like the perfect fit at Kansas, but he is a guy who inherited, he's the crisis manager coach who comes in and can maximize your potential.
I think Lance is enjoying being able to recruit in a place where he has NIL opportunities. I think that Jayhawks 2024 class is starting to look like he's found the right people to talk to. They've decided that they want to help Kansas football win a little bit. I would not leave that for Northwestern if I was Lance Leipold. I would stay at Kansas at least for another couple years to see this thing out. It has to be the Baylor, remember, did a whole Jim Grobe year to flush the system out. I guess this is going to be their Jim Grobe year, and then they brings in entirely new regime. Somebody gets a incredible facilities paycheck. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, they just dumped in a boatload of money into the facilities. I mean, the practice facility is gorgeous. It's good. You can live in a great city. Although, as long as the fires aren't coming and screwing up the air quality.
I mean, but you
picked the absolute best week to be here.
But you are going to be moving to a position where also professionally you are in a 16-team Big Ten conference, and you are fighting with Rutgers to not be 16 every single year.
And guess what you got to do? You got to hit the bar that Pat Fitzgerald set. Like, it'd be one thing if you were going to, I mean, I guess every school's had it. I mean, Elko inherited Duke, and Cutcliffe set a bar that had fallen off, and then he was able to get it right back there pretty quick. Our buddy Clark Lee at Vanderbilt was able to do what James Franklin did. So somebody will find it attractive. I just think it is going to be harder and harder in this era to win and pull out some of the success that Fitz had when he was at Northwestern. NIL, transfer portal, same reason I think Stanford's going to struggle, but Duke handled it all right.
Disappointing end to the story, and it has not been a fun one to cover professionally. I guess if there's any sunny side of this, gentlemen, the Band-Aid's ripped off. Okay? We've just accelerated to the end of the story. We don't have to spend the first 10 minutes of the next 6 episodes talking about the latest in the Northwestern hazing scandal. We went ahead and we got straight to the emergency pod. And that's your little bit of sunshine in the midst of a disappointing story. Pat Fitzgerald out at Northwestern. We'll find out much more in terms of the Wildcats and their interim coach here in the next couple of days, according to the school. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at Danny Cannell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. We will be back Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, for the Pac-12 win totals part 2. It is USC, it is Utah, it is the rest of the teams that formerly resided in the Pac-12 South. So come and hang out with us. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.